Alright, what's up, y'all? Back again. Pretty much, we got my Jeep, man. She's squeaking really loud. She's not, it ain't no gouges. Those are just heat lines. But she's due for a brake job. So what we're gonna do real quick is I'm gonna replace the rotors, replace the pads, lubricate the sliding pins. Pretty much the tools you're gonna need is a jack to jack it up, jack stands on both sides. You're going to need a 19 millimeter for these lug nuts right here, which is what I got right there. The caliper is two 18 millimeters, and the sliding pins are, I want to say they're like 13 or 14 millimeter. Some synthetic brake grease. This is the one I use. I'm not sponsored by nobody, but it is what it is. I think we're going to use some brake parts cleaner. I got O'Reilly's, $4, one can. Really, you're just only going to use this to spray on the rotors. What do you call it? These are my rotors. As you can see, I had them resurfaced because they were still good. So like when you buy new rotors and you go through your first cycle of your brake pads when they start squeaking, you can take this to a shop, and what they'll do is they'll measure the thickness, right? Actually, let me show you something. So this is actually what they use to measure your rotors. What they do is they look it up online to see the thickness, and they use this tool right here. You don't need to buy this. You can go to like O'Reilly's or AutoZone, and they can actually give you the measurements. But O'Reilly's, because they can resurface them, they actually measure them for you. But pretty much what this is just a digital, it's what's called a digital caliper. See right there, I actually got this from Harbor Freight. It's been doing me pretty good, but I'm just gonna show y'all how this thing works, man. This is actually how they measure to see if your rotors are good or not. If you guys want to invest in it, cool. Like saves y'all a trip. But it's just a neat thing to have, man. It's like not even 20 bucks, you know what I mean? So how this works is, you can see it'll give you like the measurements, right? That's pretty much how they're able to tell you if your rotor is good or not. This pair of rotors is the last cycle. After this, I gotta replace them. But other than that, you need your rotors. So this is where your brake cleaner comes in. So your brake cleaner is to clean your rotors, to make them nice and clean. All that dirt and debris, you gotta get it out. You don't want those type of issues and just throwing it on there. Then last but not least, your brake pads. Okay, you got your brake pads, and yeah, so that's all the tools you need. So what you're gonna want to do first, get you a jack the car up, make sure it's on jack stands. Don't leave it on the jack itself, because it can fail. But put it on your jack stands. Do it for both sides in the front, and let's go ahead and knock this tire off. So we're just gonna go in, take them all off. All right, so we took the wheel off, right? Here's my lug nuts. Got them all right there on the side, right? So you can see right here, this one, it's actually got maybe like a little piece of rock went in there or something at one point, but it actually still feels smooth right here. I don't know. I have to get this checked out and see if that can be resurfaced, but if not, cool, that's fine. I got my other rotors over there. But pretty much from here, what you're gonna want to do is you have a 14 millimeter up top, and then you have a 14 millimeter right here. All right, now what you're gonna want to do, undo the top one, but not all the way, and then undo the bottom one all the way. And what that's gonna do is that's gonna allow this to move up like this, and that'll actually gain access for you to take your brake pads out. So let's go. You can, if you got like a ratcheting wrench in a socket, or even a 14 millimeter wrench is cool. I have an impact because I like to make my work a lot easier. So if I'm motivating y'all to kind of like invest in tools to make your job easier, by all means go for it, because It's gonna save you a lot of time and a lot of stress. Okay, you see, it's not out all the way. Then I get this bottom one. Take that one out all the way. You see that sliding pin? We're gonna go ahead. This is the sliding pin. Okay. This is actually what goes back and forth. As you can see, it's pretty black, but there's still actually grease in it. But it is going to need to be re-greased. So anytime you do a brake job, I don't care what anybody says. Like, I really don't care what anybody says. Go ahead and clean these up and re-grease them with the brake caliper grease. And I'm actually going to show you once we reach that point. But pretty much what I was explaining was, after you take the bottom one all the way out and this one a little, not all the way, you can actually go like this. Oh, look at that. Oh. Alright. And here are my brake pads. As you can see, they're not all the way to the middle. That's a better view right there. They're not all the way to the middle, but there were screeching noises. This is what I was talking about on my maintenance video when y'all saw how bad those brakes, those brake pads were down to the metal. Like, so if you hear screeching noise, man, just go ahead and replace them. But anyways, you can actually take this out by your hand pretty easy. As you can see, I mean, you would think because you still see some meat on there that that they're still good, but from this point forward, if you were to continue to use these, if they're screeching, you're gonna have what's called a pulsation, and you can actually warp the rotor, and you start having vibrations whenever you hit your brakes. So at that point, just let it go. Let it go. Trust me, you don't want those problems. All right, trust me, it's stressful. And I'm gonna actually give y'all a total of how much I spent if you play your cards right. You know what I mean, as opposed to what could have been. So other than that, you are going to need to press this piston back, right? So like your piston is actually pushed out this far, based off of the thickness of these two pads and the rotors together. But when you put new pads on, the new pads are a lot thicker, right? So if they're a lot thicker, it won't fit on here, right? So what you're going to need to do is push this piston back. Now I'm going to show y'all a quick trick with some cheap tools that can do the same thing as some of the specialty tools. Now hold on. Alright, so right here, this is what's called a C-clamp. Pretty much you can get this cheap at Harbor Freight, not even like $8, but it's gonna do what you want it to do. And here's a little trick to push this back. But actually, let me show you a quick deal before I do that. Pause. Alright, so a quick thing y'all gonna want to do before you push that, because think about it, all your brake lines, that's all pressure, and it's actually right here. I don't know if you see that, but that's where like all your brake lines are at. So if you push that piston back, you're pushing pressure back into the system, and there's like no room to like kind of like make what you're trying to make happen, if that makes any sense. So right here is your brake reservoir, right? So what you want to do is just twist it off. Let me show y'all how late I am on this dude. See how dark that is? It's time. It's time, baby. But before you push the pistons back on any of them, leave this open so there's ventilation. So when you're pushing the piston back, it pushes back smooth. You know what I mean? Because if you push this, if you leave this on, and on a lot of cases what happens is if you push the piston back and the cap is closed, you're pushing too much pressure back and there's not enough to come out here. So it'll be hard to push the piston in. You can actually damage the system like that. You can damage the line, you can damage the hose, the brake hose, you can even damage the caliper or even your booster. It just all depends, you know what I mean? Pick your poison. So after you got that, then we're gonna come back here and I'm gonna show you a little something with this $8 tool. Go ahead and get you your old brake pad. Put it right there where it was, right? And then slowly push it back, right? Oh, I got it. Okay, now do a little closer right here. So I want y'all to see how smooth this goes in, and you see how like I'm going slow. I'm not going too fast. This right here is something that you do not want to do too fast. Do it real slow. Remember what I said about being efficient. If you try to go too fast, you might mess something up. But if you take your time, take your baby steps, I mean, look at that. Look at that. You see how like the rubber sits nice and like the way it's supposed to? It looks good. The rubber's not torn, rubber's not messed up. She's just dirty. That's all she is. So after you push your piston back, you go ahead. What I do is I put that, what I do with that 14 millimeter. All right, so what I do is I just put the bolt back on there. Then what you're gonna wanna do is you have, for the caliper bolt, you have a You have an 18 millimeter right here and an 18 millimeter right there. Go ahead and take those off, and this caliper will actually come off. You got it? All right, so we're gonna go ahead. Now, you want to be careful when you're undoing the bottom one, because if you just let it go and this whole thing starts swinging everywhere, you can actually damage your brake hose right here. You see where it's at on this metal bracket? If you kink it or something happens, it rips or tears, whatever, then you end up going to have to replace this line. And then what you're going to want to do is come look over here, kind of get a visual inspection, right? If everything looks dry, right? As you can see, everything looks dry. Nothing looks wet. Nothing's leaking, which is good. Which means that all this is still working properly because it's being maintained like the way it's supposed to be. So what I see is, I love that I can just have this in right here and not have to worry about it. As long as you're careful with your movements and you're not causing too much of a rattle, this is going to stay up here. But if you want to take precautions, they have those bungee cords where you can hook it up to the caliper where it doesn't fall. But I mean, once you know what you're doing, you'll be all right. So here's your caliper bolts, right? I'll put those there. Go ahead and take your rotor off. Toss her to the side. Hopefully she can be saved. I'm pretty sure she can. So next step, what we're going to do is grab our new rotors. All right, so what we're gonna do now, I had to wash my hands. You don't want to have greasy hands when you're cleaning your rotors, simply because I mean, why are you gonna dirty something that you're gonna put back on? You know what I mean? So what we're doing is we have to clean the rotors with. I use brake parts cleaner. Some people use other stuff, but this is what I use. Pretty much just going in, man. Get you a container. Don't just start spraying it all over the place. I just like to keep my stuff. I don't like to make a big old mess. Like, I know I got bolts laying around, whatever, but that's nothing compared to like a big mess. What you want to do is just kind of spray around, man. You can see how much cleaner it got just by spraying it. But it is recommended to wear gloves, because if you get this stuff on your skin, it is going to burn. I've had situations where I've dropped the motor doing this, and went in my eye. It burned my eye. I've had instances where some spilled on the ground and then I forget. So like when I'm laying down to do the job, I'm laying on the brake cleaner and it burns your arm. This stuff will burn you, but you know, I don't have any latex gloves around me, so just careful. Turn it around. Let's give it a nice clean. I would recommend wearing gloves and goggles if you've never done this before. Okay. You want to make sure there's no debris left over, that it's just a nice clean surface all the way around. Okay. So what you're going to do is let it sit for a couple of seconds. You're actually going to start seeing all the brake cleaner go away. I'm going like that, kind of speed the process up. I don't put it on unless it's fully dry. So let's go ahead and do this. This is probably going to be like the longest video I ever made, but it's because it's my Jeep. Then we'll go ahead and slap her on. And once you slap it on, dude, get you a lug nut, one of the lug nuts from your wheel. Put it on like this. All this is going to do is just keep the rotor from falling. And even when you're like trying to put your caliper on and all that, it just keeps it from moving around. Okay. So we went ahead and pushed the piston back. We got our rotor on. We got cleaned our rotor, put our rotor on. We pushed the piston back. So now let's go ahead and clean these sliding pins, man. Okay. Okay, so what you're gonna want to do, get your sliding pin and just try to take off as much grease as you can. But like really take off all that old grease. Okay, that one's good. Same thing with this one. Clean up all that old grease. Now I'm gonna need a beer when I edit this video. It's cool though. Alright, so now we got those cleaned up from the old grease. Now we're gonna get our pilot. Alright, so what we're gonna do, now that we cleaned our sliding pins, both sides, just so y'all know, so these are your two sliding pins, right? As you can see, they're a little different. This one's the straight shaft, and this one has like this rubber, like some type of rubber seal, something. Whatever it is, just know that the one with this black rubber thing on the tip, it goes on this is the top bolt, and the one that's straight metal right here is the bottom bolt. So keep that in mind. But what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna take this off, and then you can see here's your brake pads. And you can take those off. Okay. So now what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna put this back on. So as you remember, it was two 18mm bolts to put this back on. So go ahead and slap this back on, like so. Alright, first one, do them by hand. Okay, why are you not going in? Okay. Okay, first do them by hand. And then you want to go in with your 18mm and tighten it up with your ratchet. Pause. Alright, and go. Alright, so as you can see, I got a 1/2 inch ratchet with the 18mm. We're just gonna go ahead and tighten these up, man. Now, technically by the book, you're supposed to torque these down, but by the looks of it, if you guys are watching my video, you guys are trying to save money, not spend it. So, I'm not expecting y'all to go get a torque wrench. Pretty much, just make it real tight. This shit ain't going nowhere. Alright, so you gonna back up? Okay, now what we're going to do. Alright, pause it. Go. Alright, so what we're gonna do now, we got your piston pushed back, we got the rotor on, we got the lug nuts to hold the rotor in place, we got the caliper bracket back on. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and grease these up and then put them back in. As you can see, it gets kind of gooey at where the bolts go, so just kind of clean that off, you know what I mean? Ain't got to be perfect, but you don't want any of that old grease. Okay, so go ahead and get you your brake and caliper grease, whatever. And then you just want to like do a nice coat around. Don't cake it up, don't go too crazy with it, but you just want to make sure you got some on there. Now this is the one with the black rubber piece at the end, so what you're going to want to do is when you put this on, go ahead and stick this to the top and inside the boot. Okay, then we got the bottom. Oh wait, we're gonna wait on that. So I'm gonna go ahead and tighten this up, but not all the way. Okay, not all the way, because we need to bring this up so we can put our brake pads on. Okay. Alright, so we got the brake pads here. As you can see, they're nice and brand new, nice and thick. Look at the difference. See how this is the new one, this is the old one. Now you would think because you have all this meat right here that it's still good. That's if you want pulsation and you want to mess up your brakes. But this is how it is, brand new. So I can say probably about halfway, about half of this life is probably when you're going to start hearing the screeching sound. Anyway, so one tip about these brake pads, man, you got to remember when it's sitting right here and you're hitting the brakes, it goes back and forth like on these metal things right here, right? So what you're gonna want to do is the tips right here where it comes in contact with your hardware. These metal pieces right here you see is called your hardware, and these tips right here at the end goes back and forth on that. So it's like metal to metal, I guess. So if you want your brakes to move in a smooth motion, it has to be lubricated. So what you're gonna want to do is just go ahead and do a nice little tip, man. Like kind of nice little tip. Don't cake it too much, but just do a nice little coat around where the metal would be in contact with each other. And then some people debate this, but I do it. There's like this metal plate right here. I put some on the metal plate. Just a nice thin coat. You know, you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to have it cake in. But you know, just a nice thin coat. And then you put this on. I'll actually slide in nice and you see how you can slide that back and forth nice and smooth. It's actually what you want. If you have to like mess with it too much for it to move, just take it out, clean it out, and do it again to where you have a nice smooth slide. And do the same thing here. Let's go ahead and just grease up the tips. Okay, the back plate. This is what I'm gonna call it. I don't know the actual name, but pretty much the back plate. And what we did right here, we're gonna do the same thing in the back. Alright, so once you got both your brake pads on, should look like that. So this is the one from the outside. As you can see, it's in there. It's in there, greased up at the ends, greased up on the plate. Come back here. Same deal. The back side. So now you are ready to put this down. Let's go ahead and watch what happens. See how it goes over nice? That's because you pushed that piston back. If you hadn't pushed that piston back and you did your brake pads like this, once you hit this point, it will be knocking right here and it wouldn't go through because the width of the brake pad, the new pads in the rotor, is wider than what you would have available if you didn't push the piston back. So it goes on very smooth like that. Now we get our, remember this is the bottom sliding pin. So after you clean out the old grease, whatever, it's nice and clean as you can see. I'm gonna go ahead on the shaft and just do a nice coat. You know, you ain't gotta go too crazy, but just do a nice little coat. And the same way we slid it into this right here, you're gonna slide it the same way on the bottom. Alrighty, so we got the top one on tight, and we got the bottom one on tight. So as far as your rotor's clean, in and out, resurfaced, ready for this one, its last cycle. Now you got your brake pads on, and your brake pads are lubricated on both ends on the back plate on both pads, and you were able to compress the piston back to fit it over the new pads, and you got your sliding pins and you took them out, cleaned them up, and greased them up. So after you do one side the way we just did it here, do the same exact thing on the other side, and then put your wheels back on, lug nuts, and we're gonna go in and press your brake pedal. So hold on. All right, so now that you got all that shabazz done, rotors, pads, caliper, sliding pins, all that being greased up, everything tightened up, ready to go. You got it all done on that side, and you got the same thing done on this side. So this is what I would do at this point, is just go in and hit your brake pedal. Now the thing about this is you gotta do this real slow, man. So like, we're gonna go ahead and push the brake pedal all the way down, then come back up, push it down, Way up. And just keep pressing it all the way down. You're gonna feel the pressure build up, and you're gonna feel it get real stiff. Once you actually feel like the pressure build back like it's normal, then everything is good to go on that part. So now you can't move this because your calipers push back out. So now that we did that, so this is ready to bleed the brakes, and now this is ready to bleed the brakes. So we're done as far as like the front brakes, right? One little tip that I want to show you is whenever you're pressing the piston back, remember I told you to leave this open so the fluid so the pressure can ventilate. My brother put this right here, so whenever the reservoir started rising or the fluid started rising, it goes on the towel and it doesn't go all over the place.